everyone. Welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker Training. I'm Richard Carlton, creator of FMTrain.tv, where every day at 1 o'clock Pacific time, we're doing FileMaker Training. We're very excited by that. Today is Friday. Welcome to Friday, everyone. You survived another week. If we go to the FMTrain.tv website, we're going to see the upcoming broadcast schedule when that eventually runs. Next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week, Nick is going to be continuing to do, when I say millions, I mean tens, if not, I think he was upwards of 500 million records in the tables, what he told me. I don't know if that's accurate or not. If it is, it makes me nervous. My nervousness when you're dealing with that many records on a live stream TV.
I think a quadrillion total. He had me looking up the amount of zeros that was on live. So
yeah, that's a lot of zeros. So that's been Nick working through what you can do with FileMaker or what you can't do with it. Let's talk about Vince. Let's talk about yesterday. So Beeswax is a company. They've been around a long time, very talented individuals. Vince has been around for a long time. Vince is a specialist in making tools that help you understand what your FileMaker solution is doing behind your back. So if you build a solution like I built the BVA solution, then you walk away for 6 or 12 months and you come back and you're like, hey, there's this junky layout at the bottom with a name, and I'm just going to do some cleanup. But part of cleaning up is getting rid of things you don't need. You just don't perpetually keep, like a class 5 hoarder keeps old rotten sandwiches and stuff in your desk drawer. You need to throw things away, but you can't throw something away that's important. And so that's where InspectorPro comes in, right, Vince? Is that where it comes in?
Sir.
So I told Vince to make the case why we want his product and why it's important. Okay. So that continues to be my goal. So.
Okay, Richard, thanks for having me on again. Okay, well, we'll pick up where we left off yesterday. Yesterday, we were just kind of mostly looking at the history of this tool and how it's evolved over the years, etc. Today, we're going to dive into some of the actual demos. So here we're going to skip over this first demo because I actually covered this yesterday. This one was the integration methods, right? So the different types of integration methods. And so there's upload manually. There's the API method.
Yeah, you had three, right? Didn't you have three?
Yeah.
You had three.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like here, like if we go into it, like here's example, like you'll create a solution. Once you've created the solution, you have the ability to then add the add-on.
Yep.
This can fast forward from yesterday, but once you have the add-on added in there and you go into browse mode, all you do is you plunk the number in that you have in an inspector, and basically these two things now are kind of like antenna. This knows to talk to that, and that knows to talk to the file. Exactly.
Good.
So
Good.
That's the add-on. Okay, so next, so the integration options. Really quickly, we talked about them yesterday. There's the manual upload one.
The three. Yep.
There's so you upload that.
Mm-hmm.
There's then the second one, which is make some changes, and then window names is the other thing, right? So you can put the name of the windows of the files that you want to upload in the bottom. You type in a comment in the middle. You run it. The thing with this is don't run this on files that are open over the network. You want to do this on local files. If you have files open on a network and they're hosted on the same server, you'll want to use the add-on, and that's the middle thing. That's the integration API method. So I was going to skip out of this. We're going to go to the next.
So we would say this for everyone, just so you know, this is so the latest data out of your FileMaker solution is piped in and transported into InspectorPro for analysis. Does that make sense? So what he described is 3 ways of having your FileMaker solution talk to the inspector solution. An inspector can look at it and say, oh, these things are broke, or this is this. And so this is the pipeline of data. Once you set it up, it kind of runs semi-automatically, right, with a script or something, right? So that's what he just showed.
Yeah. And so next, we're going to talk about once you have a lot of data in it, you'll be able to also reset it. So there's some options here. You can delete it or reset it. So like the case for doing one or the other is that you may want to just reset it so you don't delete the solution in Inspector. And what that helps you do is if you've added notes or tags or you've added people to be able to use this solution, all of that you don't lose. So it just gets rid of all the analyses. And then once you start analyzing again, any notes that you added, so let me pause here for just 1 second. So like any notes that you added or tags that you added or team members that you've added that have access to that solution, all those stay intact. They just get relinked to the solution. However, if you're done with keeping track of something, you're moving on to another project, then absolutely click delete, and what that'll do is just remove the entire solution and all the items. You can also option click on it, and you'll bypass any of these dialogues, so you don't have to confirm those changes. So does that make sense, Richard?
Yes, sir. Makes perfect sense. Sorry.
Okay. So that's resetting and deleting. So one of the main goals of this solution is to help you stay in the zone, and that is so look at these videos here that I've recorded to show you how this can help you stay in the zone of development. So this is the layout. I'm going to change the name of the layout. I'm going to change some attributes of the layout, and change enable quick find, etc. Change the table occurrence context. So I've made a bunch of attribute changes to the layout itself. Okay, I'm going to make another change. I'm going to delete an object off the layout, and I'm going to then go ahead and generate it. So I press the option key down. It's running in the background, and when it's done, I can click on.
Go back just a smidge in your video. Go back to a smidge. Here is your fancy solution that you're working on, and you're adding things, you're removing things, is what he just said. But we want to have an analysis potentially and keep our analysis software, which is this window over here, which is the InspectorPro window. It doesn't just magically see in here. We have to fire a script. That's what we were doing earlier to attach it. So when we press this button, this thing here is going to roll up all the changes that you've made, feed them into InspectorPro. And then it's going to do an analysis in real time or nearly real time or whatever that looks like. So then you could come over here and see how these changes might affect other things. That's the whole point of this, right? It's super important that you have that ability to understand your work, and you hit a button and boom, this is updated. So then you can come over here and glean knowledge, glean thoughtfulness, glean insights. There's the word I was looking for. Thank you. Go ahead, Vince. I just want to make sure people understand what was going on with this, because that's
okay. So
it's
you
really
have one
important.
more artifact.
Yep, I got it there.
Okay. Yeah. So again, sometimes like with the add-on, if I press that button, that's the add-on that we added. It would bring up a sheet, and it would let you type a comment. But sometimes even typing the comment gets in the way of your work, right? So you just want to get it running, and so stay in the flow of your work. So I just pressed, that button. I held the option key down. It fired off the process, and it ran, and I can look at it like almost immediately. And now I'm looking at it, and I see two changes, right? I see the layout object that got deleted. So like on the side here, you see this little red bar. These are things that got deleted. The things in orange are things that got modified. The things in green show up as things that are added. So you'll see here that I have this object was deleted, and this one says a layout, and this number 12 actually is the number of attributes on that layout that got modified. If I click on it, I see all the attributes and the changes of before and after as to what changed and from what to what. Okay, so I changed the what was it here? I changed the the layout name. I shortened the layout name. I made the number of objects on the layout changed, and that's an attribute of the layout, so it tracks the number of objects. I had some of these other flags went from 1 to 0 or 0 to 1. Et cetera, right? So these are changes that Inspector picked up to tell you, like, these changes were made. Not only does it tell you that the changes were made, but it tells you who made them and when they were made, right? So, you look at tools like Get and stuff like that. You can then attribute blame to tell people, why did you break it? So that was one change. Let's go back in. And let's look at some more changes here. again, this idea of like staying in the flow, right? I made those changes. I didn't have to wait for the processing. It happens in the background. So here I'm making some changes to an account. And this account is for a person named Julia. And I'm making description changes. I made some other changes. I changed the privilege set. And now I'm going to run it again. This time I'll hold the option key down again. I run it. It's running. It's done. I'll look at it. And it tells me like the account changed. The 4 attributes of the account got noted here, those changes. So I'm going to go back in, make another change to the account as well. So I'm going to go back in. This time I'm going to go look at the dashboard. I'm going to go to the account. And this here is worth noting here. See that little object there that you see on the row? This little icon that looks like a clock. That shows up on an item when there's history, whereas when there's changes. So you can instantly tell, like, okay, you analyze it the first time, and then you're looking at the list of fields or value lists or whatever. And if you see that little dial there, that's telling you that some changes have occurred since the first time you ran this analysis to bring in this data. So if you look at that and you click on that, you'll see a dialog that looks like this, and this is the history detail report for this account. Let's say this is the Julia's account. I'm going to keep playing this video. I'll show you some other things here about this. So I'm going to go back into the file. I'm going to make more changes to that Julia's account. Okay, so I made another change. I changed the privilege set. I added some more description there. I'm going to run it. This time I clicked it. I'm going to type a message, and this is an old add-on integration UI. The UI is much better than this now. This was an old movie. So I ran it again. Now you see the text got updated live here. And if you look, now you'll see 2 entries, right? So you'll see the changes I made at 1045, the changes I made at 1046. Here's all the attribute changes that were rolled into that. Let's say commit. Here's all the attribute changes that happened here. And then I'll do one more change. And this time, what we'll do is we'll actually go in and remove Julia's account. So I'll go into security. I'll go to Julia's account. I'll remove it. Julia's account is actually gone. And if you look in the background here, when I process it, this row will disappear. It just disappeared. It's gone. Okay, so it's no longer trapped in the system. However, when you look into in here, you'll see in the top right there is a little field, and that field is the global search across this solution. And you can globally search on any string, be it in the schema or calculation or the history. So because the account is gone, I have this little check mark here saying search across history. And because of that, I'm actually able to recover what was deleted. So it finds Julia's account, and it shows, and I can click on it and see the history of changes that have occurred. And this window here, from the bottom moving up, you'll see a blue bar to tell you that Julia's account existed when I did my first import. If this bar was green, that means that Julia's account was added sometime after the first analysis. So it tells you like someone added it, and it tells you that it got added. These are the changes that have occurred in analysis 4, analysis 5, and then it tells you the current state. And here at the top, you'll see a red bar if that account is no longer existing in the solution. Now, this applies to scripts, value lists, layouts, table occurrences, et cetera, et cetera. It's the same kind of view.
All right, so I'm going to ask a question about this, but I want to get back to David's question momentarily. But here's the thing. So I'm looking at this, and you're saying, well, blue means that this person ran a 100-yard race, and then then backwards in time, 5 steps, and went left to right. How do I? Okay, but since you're not going to live with me, Vince, at my house, and you're not going to be there to tell me what blue means, how the hell do I know what blue and yellow and green and red mean? I mean, red's bad. Okay.
Yeah, it actually tells you in the text here. Julia, the account Julia existed when the baseline import happened.
Okay.
Okay,
And what does
so
yellow mean? Or the orange there, or whatever that
the
is.
orange means these are modifications. So
Okay.
there's four attribute modifications that happened for this item. So like I'm looking at an item related to an account. So four attribute changes to this account. And so this is the description, the modifications, count, the privilege set, and the privilege set ID.
Okay. So
So these are all the changes.
let me just keep that. So what is this right here? What does this constitute? Is that like one scan of the solution versus what
Yeah,
this is?
yeah, so this is analysis number 4. This is
Okay.
analysis number 5. When it ran, who ran it,
Okay.
etc. Right. So
Well,
yeah, actually,
it's just not necessarily clear to me. I mean, I'm starting to understand that now, and if I was using it, but I mean, so David Angel has a question, very similar to this, I guess. Can we filter by layouts, dates, and users? So I guess if you kind of close that and you went back, can you? Let me see.
can I
How,
filter by what? Sorry, what was it?
he wants to know if you can can you filter by layouts, comma dates, comma user?
Let's see. Well, this is a view, a history detail for a particular item.
I think
So
he was
when
asking about over here on that window over
Oh,
there.
I see. So like over there. So in
Yeah.
this view here, this one here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So these areas are like, this is the dashboard, and we have like some uh dashboard graphic that's going to come soon over here. But basically these are the counts of things. So like I have 98 fields, I have 41 layouts, and if you click on these will take you to that area, and we'll look at this shortly. But you're basically navigating to those different lists of things, but this is the summary of everything that you have. And it's important to note here, like, sorry, I've got to go back there 1 second. Adding users, this one here. So if you go back to the dashboard, here, this dashboard, you'll see over here, these gray bars.
Okay.
So like, if you look at this is kind of like also a dashboard onto itself. And so if you look at fields, I have 98 fields. I have 16 fields that are unreferenced, and that's 16% of my fields I can throw away. Basically, there's still some. Again, we talked about this yesterday, where if you use SQL and you have strings for field references, etc.
Indirection.
Yeah,
Yes.
indirection. So you got to be aware to look for those calculation function references. But this is telling you that so far those 16 fields are unreferenced. And so what you might want to do is click that number, go look at the fields, and then maybe just do some cleanup and say, I don't need those fields. I can delete them. And what will happen here is all these gray bars will shorten, and then you'll just have like just numbers of things that are in use and active, if that makes sense.
Can we look at this? Can we click on these, or we're just kind of limited inside your?
No, I mean, I have it open here. I'm just running through the videos for the
Okay.
demos. So like,
Okay.
I like, here's FM starting point. And if I look at FM starting point, I can go look at the 1,705 fields that you have in that solution. And,
Yeah.
I can do a search and say, find me all fields that contain the word user. Oops.
Yeah, I think this is what David's asking this question. He's asking, can
So
you
here,
find stuff? Can
so here's all the fields that have the word user in the name of the field, right?
Can
Or
we how about all the
what's that?
unreferenced items? We could work a list against that.
Yeah. So like, if I go back to the dashboard, I
Mhm.
go to the fields, I could click on this number.
Yeah.
And these are 408 fields that have no references to them.
Which means that
Right,
they're
so
not unreferenced means it's not in a script, explicitly in a script, and it's not on a layout.
Right. It's not in a value list. It's
not a value
not
list.
in a
So
relationship, not in a
part of me-
calculation.
part of me wonders why I have such a big number here. because I don't do a lot of indirections. So I'm like, so yes, interesting. All right.
Yeah, worth
cool.
worth looking into.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it might just be that starting point is old in the grand.
Nah, this one was rebuilt. This one was
What was
rebuilt. So
totally rebuilt? Okay.
yeah, pretty much. But there is the JavaScript calendar that's based in it, which has, external integration. So I don't know that it would necessarily, if that would show up in there or not. But like the one about the calendar, but some of these are like display items, right? And then some of these are summaries, but they must not, be used, or they're, they should be referenced in a script, because a lot of times, like a summary, you'll have a summary, it'll be off the side over here, and then you like press a button and it grabs it and it brings it on screen or something. So most of the time, or it's maybe not even on the layout at all, so it doesn't trip your dialog bars, right? Oh, sorry, you're going to go to list view, processing summary for the next hour, right? We avoid that. So makes you wonder about that.
I'll kind of like circle back to what I think David was asking, mostly because I'm curious. Can you figure out changes made by developer, basically? Like if it was me and Richard in here, could you sort all
Yeah,
the changes that I made?
yeah, let me see here where that would be. So if I were to go here, I could say I want to look at the history of changes in the most recent analysis in the last 3 hours, today, yesterday, last 7 days, are all history changes, right? So I can say from a certain point in time, I could say, look at changes by a certain username, right? So all changes by a particular person, or I can say, look at all changes in the field area, or scripts, or relationships, right? So you can use any one of these combinations of things to bring up what changes have happened on a particular system. So there's that filtering. Hope that answers that question.
Margaret, David Angel reply back, you're on the right track there. Sort by user between certain days, for example. Well, okay, so but this is once again not so much user data, this is structural design stuff,
I think
right?
when David Angel is saying user, he means a developer. So
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think so
yeah,
too.
yeah.
Because this is
No,
this is yeah.
this is just schema changes. It's not like, who entered this data, whatever. This is who made that change to that field, who moved that layout object, et cetera, et cetera. Right. So these are schema changes. And like we were talking about before, Richard, like again, if I go into starting point and I go look at the 156 value lists that you have, I'll look at this value list, right? The yes, no value list. Hey, I'm using that 12 times somewhere.
Yeah.
It's referenced on, this layout. It's on this radio button, whatever.
Okay.
Right. So I can click here to go see it, etc. But basically what that's telling me is don't delete this value list, right?
Yes.
Yes. So like the metaphor of call before you dig, right? So you don't want to dig in your backyard and hit a gas pipe. You have bigger problems in the rest of your day, right? So you don't want to introduce problems.
That's a good analogy. So for those of you who are not big into construction, you don't pay attention to life. Although I know there's some people here actually I don't see him right here. Oh, there's Ed. Ed Burkle's a fire marshal in the eastern part of the United States somewhere. But yeah, they always say if you're going to start trenching and digging, we had a customer, we built software for them, and they had a employee who refused to do that. They were digging, they started trenching on Market Street in San Francisco, downtown. And it blew up into the air and shut power off the most of downtown San Francisco around Market Street. And I mean,
Wow.
all the news is there, all the news helicopters there. No one gets hurt, but everyone loses productivity because the power's out and all this other stuff is out. And so you don't want to be that person. You don't want to be that person. Yeah. So if you don't want to cause a fire and make the news with your database, check to make sure before you start digging. So back up. I'm going to pick a layout. I want to dig on the invoices list view. On starting point, there's an invoice data entry screen, a main one, invoice list view. I want to dig on that. So how do we do that?
What's the layout? What's the layout name?
It'd be something about invoice and the word list view, but we use a lot of underscores, so I don't know if that'll throw it off. There we go.
This one here, invoices.
There it is. There it is. There it is. There it is. It's layout L801. Now, What are my liabilities with that? Tell me if I start digging, who might I kill?
Well, there's three places.
Mhm.
There's a layout object. Looks like there's a layout object here that points to that layout. There's
Okay,
a
so
warning
that's
for that.
okay. A
Let me go
button,
see
okay,
back. Yeah.
okay.
So there's layout object and there's a script reference. So if I go look at the script reference, you'll see this script. Step
It's
number 8 says go to layout, the
got it.
layout that we just referenced.
Yep, yeah, yeah.
So
So that's how that works. This is what I just did right here is check before you dig, and that's tool allows you to do that. Otherwise, you don't know what's underground, right? You don't know
yeah,
what's there.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
David Angel asked the question: if we go back to the modifications, does this thing give you a timestamp of the modification? I think it just gives you the timestamp of the last of the scan that picked it up. I think, right?
It
So,
gives you that modification as to now here this stuff here. Let's say the last yesterday we did some changes to the meetings file. I think we were demoing this.
yeah, but FileMaker
So
doesn't keep track of a timestamp of when you make an edit unless you're triggering a data
no, it
push.
does. It does. It
It
does.
does?
So like let me open up a file here. Hold on. Desktop. And so this is XML. This is the untitled file. So in here, if you look in here, in every one of these objects, and this is so we're looking at the field catalog. So these are fields for the base of the table called customer. And
Okay.
so there's 2 fields in that table. But if you look here, there's a field ID, and that
Mhm.
field also has a UUID. It has a modification count. It has a username, has an account name, and it has a timestamp. Right. And
So
so if
what
you
they use it,
modify this,
okay, go ahead, keep talking.
if you modify this field,
Uh-huh.
okay, the modification count will increment. The timestamp will note the last time this field was changed, and it will also have the account name of the person who changed it and the username of the person who
So it
changed it.
shows the last, it's kind of like the old FileMaker thing down at the bottom of the layout, which I still have in some solutions, is like date and time created and the last modified by, right?
Yeah,
On the record, right?
yeah,
This is that kind of thing, right?
yeah. So
Okay.
you do have a timestamp there.
It's not
However,
it's not super holistic because
yeah,
what you're looking at on the right over here, once again, this is the XML version 2. This is the atoms from the Star Trek transporter, right? We talked about the Star Trek transporter. This is if you
yeah,
could actually look at the stream, Scotty, add more power to the power buffer, batter buffer. Blah, 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 blah. When people die on the transporter, this is the stuff on the right here he's looking at that gets lost. It gets lost. It doesn't transmit on the radio or however they move people back and forth. Here it gets lost and they die or they lose body parts. And so
yeah.
this is huge. This is, I mean, in a lot of ways, this is educational for people. This is where we're going.
So what this, I mean, if you don't use a tool like Inspector or Base Elements or FM Perception, you're gonna be trolling all this stuff. Like there's style sheets, there's a lot of style information. I mean, this file is pretty big, and usually it's just mostly XML, but this also has, again, a lot of CSS stuff, and
Mhm.
this is a really tiny file. So we got a lot of style information, but we then have all the XML at the top here, right? So you're gonna be trolling this stuff. So would you rather troll that stuff, or would you rather, go look at lists of data that are nicely presented, et cetera, right? So,
Exactly,
um,
exactly. So yeah, so that's
all
that's
right,
the that's the whole point of this is because Claris built that XML. They built it for Vince and they built it for a handful of, like Jesse Barnum at 360 Works, really smart people. But the fact that they're doing this and they continue to modify it means that um, Vince can tap into it and make a product that's so great that we want to buy it from him, which is which is what you're seeing here. He's tapping into it. We don't have to do the work. It gives us the net results, and then we pay Vince for his time, basically. So
let me go through a few other areas, Richard, so that we cover a
absolutely.
little bit more ground. So again, it has support for adding users. I'm going to quickly go through this. There's a place where you can add other users to Inspector. So in this case, I'm going to add a new user and give them the name and email, sign them up for either being an InspectorPro user or an admin. If you create a person who's an admin, they can do anything. If you create a user who's user and you don't check this this flag, allow user to edit, create, delete solutions, then the only thing that user can do is look at and participate in solutions that they're added as a member. Okay. So, but if you give them that option, then they can create their own solution and manage their own solution. And so this is where you would add people that you've added as your users, and you can assign them as a role. So you can add people to, this is the meetings file. I just added Tony Manano. I add myself, I'll add Brendan. And so now we have these 3 people, and those 3 people are the people that can see that solution and work on it along with anyone who's an InspectorPro admin. And so that's how you can control who has access to what, especially if you're managing different solutions and Inspector. Okay, then locating items. Again, we talked about this yesterday. My hope is that eventually we'll have a deep linking protocol. So if you find a problem, you can directly go to address it. So in this case, I have this tab panel, and it tells me where that object is. It's a text object, the word date. If I go look and process it, I process it. I go look at the dashboard. I go look at the layout. I'll find that layout, the demo layout, and then I'll go show all the objects on the layout. And then you'll see that text object, and it tells me if I hover on it, this is the absolute position of the object versus the relative position. So you give both positions. But it also tells you that that text object is inside that panel. If I go to layout mode and I move the object outside the panel and I run it, you'll see that, hold the option key, I run it, you'll see the text object move out of the container. Like now it's no longer contained within that panel. And you'll also see, like, if you look at the history of changes, you'll see that the parent object type used to be a panel, but now there is no panel, right? So it tells you that something has changed about that object. If I go back to layout mode, I undo my change and I run it again by holding the option key down, just run it, and you'll see that object reconnect itself back to the panel, right? So now it's back in the panel. So there's all these like little finesse type of things that give you information as to what's going on.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, that's the layout objects. And here, I mean, you see a lot of, you'll get a lot of information. You'll get the location of the object. You'll get the anchoring information for each object, whether it's anchored, left and bottom or top and right, etc. You'll get if it's locked. You'll get, some calculations that if you click on them, you'll see whether it has a tooltip calculation. It has a hide condition calculation. There's a ton of stuff in here that we just don't have the time to dig into all the little details, but it's all there. It's all there. So additional information and problems. So because there's so much information, sometimes like for, let's say, layouts, you have all these script triggers. You have these popover panels that can tell you like, okay, this layout has these 3 triggers attached to it. These are all this script called beep, and these are the settings that are enabled for that script trigger, those script triggers. If you have how do you say, like this is a layout, and if I have some problems on it, I can click on the problem icon, and it'll tell me, okay, you looks like you're missing the on record load script trigger is missing for this, and then none of the modes are enabled for this trigger. So a lot of information is under these tooltips, these popovers that add more details. Okay, we also added another feature that we can do directly from Inspector, and that is we're able to drop indexes.
Really?
So here's the meetings file.
That's news
So
for
if I go into the
me.
schema, yeah, so there's a table called action items. It's got 3 fields there. If you look in the table, your status, due date, and subject. Those three fields have indexes. If you click the little drop index icon there, you'll enter the account name and password that needs to have OData access enabled. And if you click the drop index thing, you'll get a message to confirm that you want to do that. And this is an old UI, so we've improved it. This is just an early movie.
Okay,
So
so
I've just
you're dropping. Go ahead.
I just dropped those indexes. Hold on. We'll just go to the schema here just to prove that it's I ran it. And if you look, those indexes are gone. If you look in the schema, the indexes are gone. So we both updated inspector and we removed the indexes. So both of those are now in sync, so to speak. Go ahead.
No,
Richard.
I just was going to ask the question. So that, I mean, that's a great one. Does people, what does anyone want to ask? I'm going to ask the question. Where might I want to remove an index? Why might I want to, first, what do indexes attach to? Two big things. And then why might I want to drop the index? And anyone can answer it who's not Vince.
Well, I know they definitely attach to relationships because
That's one. What's
that
the other
up
one? What does it drive the other thing? What's the other thing it drives?
Fines.
Thank you. So if you have fines and or relationships that are going ape and you're not sure why, and you swear on a stack of Bibles that your stuff is correct and you can't find a problem, you could drop the index and FileMaker rebuild it. You can also do this with recovery, but this is a lot easier this way. Plus Vince, I'm going to ask you, you have selective index nuking like on a per record basis or something? That's kind of wild. Or
well, you could actually run that like let me go back there. If you run it, let's see here. If you run it, when you drop the index, you see how it says found set or selected record? You could say find all the fields that have an index or find all the fields in this table and I can just say run it for the found set. And if it has an index, it'll remove it. If it doesn't, it just skips over it. And so you can actually do it on a kind of like a bulk thing. Sometimes, people have that thing, that quick find thing turned on. Yep. And then all of a sudden, all the fields in a table are like, because they have all the layout, all the fields on a layout, all of a sudden, all the fields in that table are indexed. And it's like, and indexes take up space,
yes,
and slow things down. So you want to be careful. And if you're a developer, you want to kind of stay on top of it and make sure you have the control to remove them.
The quick find is being rejiggered per ongoing complaining by the developer community. So they turn it on for everyone by default, and that's caused problems. So, good point. All right, good.
All right,
keep going, people. Keep going.
All right.
Some people are asking how much is this and how do I get it? So just so you know, that is a question that's floating out there.
Okay. Well, again, we have a 15% discount for your viewers till the end of July, and it's FN Training 15.
Okay.
Right. You can use that discount code, and if you go to the website, there's different levels, and I can just briefly mention them here. There's a single user license. You can run it locally, or you can host it on a server. But running it on the server is the best solution because it's just out of the way, it's running, and it's kind of asynchronous. And that single user license is a subscription model, so it's $250 per year. So in this case, 15% off your first year. Then you have up to 3 users, then you have up to 8 users, and then you have unlimited, basically. So you have so those are the models. Adding tags. So let's say you want to put tags on things like, I don't know, optimize or refactor or investigate, whatever the tags are that you want to create. You have some styling here. You can add it. You can create the tag. So this is tag management. So now I have all these tags: prototype, refactor, optimize, to do, investigate, etc. Now I can go to any item and just add the tag. And I say, I want to add investigate. I want to add refactor. So, I've got 2 tags on that script. Okay. And now I can add it on another script. I can add to do. I can add another script, another tag, etc. The tags are also searchable. So, the search across, like we're using Logicator here. So here's another tag. We're going to add another one called demo. And so you have a tag management and you have a tag application. So you apply the tags. Now, again, what I was saying before, which is resetting a solution. If you've added tags to items and you reset the solution, all your analysis history goes away. But as soon as you start analyzing again, all those tags get relinked. And like I showed here, you can search on individual tags, and so you remove them on things. So there's a lot of cool things that you can do with tags. And the same thing applies to notes. So you can attach a note to anything. So for example, you can't add a note to a value list. There's no thing in FileMaker that lets you type in a note for the value list, but you can use Inspector and add a note for the value list, and that note can persist as long as you have that solution enabled, and people can participate and see what notes you've attached to any item. So let me see how many things are left with time here. So we've got
questions from people. You got quite a few things you got going. You can keep going. We can run over if you need to a little bit. That's not a problem.
Okay. I mean, I think adding tags. Then there's like a recap. I think there's one other thing I wanted to show, and then I can show it in the solution itself. So, for example, if I go to look at scripts, there is a section in here when you start a new solution, and you have enable AI for script summary and semantic search, right? So what we did is we added this feature that just came out, right? So you have semantic searching. So you can put in your account name for, in this case, we're using OpenAI. You put your API key, and basically you're paying for your own token usage, right? But the point is that what this allows you to do is, again, with starting point, I can look at a script. Let's say, some script that's fairly long here. Let's see, this one here, keyboard on keystroke navigation. And if I look at the generated summary, this script displays a custom dialog with information about the user's keystrokes and modifier keys. Then it performs navigation based on the keystrokes. So that gives you a summary of the script. So instead of having to, here, let me copy the.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's slick.
Yeah. So instead of having to read all of this, I just got a summary of what that script does, and a short summary, a concise summary, and a longer summary, right? So
I hate to tell you this. This is the coolest I've seen yet from you. This is something I've never seen before. It makes perfect sense. Can I ask a question? Is this, I mean, you guys obviously have tried to make sure this is fairly accurate, but every once in a while you ask AI and it starts giving you answers from a SQL database or some other like that, right? And is this thing, have you guys trained this to be not stupid, or is it FileMaker centric, or is it?
No, basically we just feed it the so just like what I showed you here, we feed it this data, right? And if you have comments in your scripts, it actually uses them almost like Markdown and uses them as kind of hints as to what the script is doing. But even if you don't have comments, it still works well. Like here's a script that's 113 steps.
Oh, this ought to be good. I wrote this script. Tell me, run that one. I want to see what this one says.
Okay, so first off, let's look at it. Okay, that's 113 steps. If I paste it in here, like it's just a bunch of like resets, right?
Yeah.
So this script goes to each of the diagnostic layouts and resets the serial number. So here's a dialog telling you to confirm what you want to do, and then it goes to the layout, sets a variable,
and it does all the tables essentially. Yeah. So it's just kind of a reset.
Yeah. So here's the summary. And I'll let you read the summary. You tell me
The
if it's right.
script resets the serial numbers for multiple database tables which are associated with the A tog. That's cool. That's useful. It first prompts the user for confirmation, goes through diagnostic cloud to repeat the serial numbers for each process. After completing the reset, it displays a message. That's pretty good. It doesn't really
Okay,
say.
so I'm not,
That's not. Is this the long version or the short one? Which
yeah,
one is this?
this is a long version. Here's the short version.
This is the database associated with the tog after user. The long one's pretty good. That ain't bad. So. Well, okay, so now
So
now I went from kind of like this is interesting to like now I have to have this. So this is like
I'm not done. I'm not done. Hold
you're
on.
not done. Or well,
No,
you
no,
don't
no.
have-
Hold on. Hold on. So now that we have the summary, okay. Now that we have the summary, we generate an embedding based on the summary. Okay, you know where I'm going with this? So I can go to AI here and type, you know, I don't know, reset. Reset.
Oh. So now
Kind
you
of
can
like whatever
search
scripts
for
that do
like
resets, right? So here's that script that just came up. I mean, I have the word reset, but maybe you can type another word that's a synonym of reset, but restore or something, right? But it searches
Yeah.
for the meaning, right? So so this is what it's doing, and it's doing it by having a large cosine value and then repeating the a very high cosine match number, and then if it doesn't find anything, it just keeps opening that number up until it finds a like a match,
like a
right?
top 10 or
And
whatever. Yeah, I see what
yeah,
you're
yeah,
saying,
and so this is so
Yeah, we were-
so
we
now
were-
you're
Go ahead. You're good. Keep going.
I'm just saying that now you have the ability to search semantically across the meaning of your scripts.
Okay, so David
Yeah.
Angel says, oh, he says, can I search all the scripts that have a GTRR? Well, GTRR is a direct search, but how would you? Yeah, go to related record. Yeah, go to related.
So go to related records. So here's a and go to account. Let me see this
That's
one.
communications. There's
Go
there it
to
is right
related
there.
record.
Yeah, they're in there.
Go to related record right here. Right? So
Yeah, David. Okay, so David's
yes.
having the same issue I am, which is I sense this is amazingly awesome, but I'm missing the ultra. What do you call it? The killer application for it, the killer use case.
Okay. Yeah. So the killer
need to-
use case is this.
Give me the killer use case.
You've so okay, so let's say I just downloaded you know, Starting Point, and I'm at a client and they're using Starting Point. I never used it. I come across this startup script. What the hell is that doing? I could go and copy the steps of the script. I could paste it, and I could pour over all the steps of this script to try and understand what it's doing. I can just go look at a summary. This script performs various checks and sets up upon opening the FileMaker file, including logging startup, checking preferences, setting staff and calendar preferences, performing PSOS diagnostic, and setting initial session values.
That's pretty accurate.
I mean,
That's pretty accurate. That's pretty accurate.
yeah, and I didn't have to pour over all that code. I get an idea what that script is doing. And then this is just the beginning. We're just, you know, starting.
Yeah, the AI
started
stuff
with,
is just beginning.
yeah.
I think this would get.
Yeah. So,
The fact
what do you think, David? That ain't too shabby, is it? Yeah,
Yeah.
David says that's cool. Yeah. It ain't
okay,
too
good.
shabby.
I'm glad it. Yeah, it ain't too shabby. All right. There was one other thing I wanted to show, but let me see where I have it. I don't remember where I put it. So let me see if I can show you. You have layouts here, and then you have a section for styles, and this breaks down. Like you have, let's say, this home layout.
Yeah.
You have 35 objects on the layout. 11 of them, 30% of them are default styled. You have 10 of them are
Yeah.
themed. Okay. You have 0 objects on that layout that are local styled, like layout style, but you have 14 of them, 40% of them, 3.6 kilobytes of them that are local styled. They are not theme styles
Okay,
or default styles.
stop. Just stop. Just stop.
Ah,
Just stop.
yeah.
This is okay. Vince, put your fingers in your ears. Just I can't. You're not allowed to hear what I'm about to say. This is awesome. I have to have this now. That we spent hours in training talking about custom themes and shared styles. A shared style means that number is essentially 0 over there. It's not customized at all. It's a shared style. If you customize the styles, then the styles start putting on girth units, right? And they get girthy and they get bigger and bigger and bigger. And it makes the performance of your layout go slower. This is the first time. AI is killer. That right there tells you that if you had a base style, how much you fattened it up, because that directly affects the download speed of the server as it sends the data to your client.
Rendering that layout takes extra time.
Yes.
Because you have to do all this extra
upwards
work.
of 300% more time if it's really fat. It's almost like triple bad. So anyway.
Yeah. So there's the dropping indexes. There's
all sorts of good
AI.
stuff.
There's tons of cool stuff. I mean, the biggest deal really is for me is this idea of like attribution, so you know who changes what, etc. Right? And the other big deal is here I can just show you right here. There's an icon here. It tells you like, hey, somebody changed this layout. Let me look at what they changed, right? So I can go click on it, and it tells me like, some of the objects on the layout got changed. Like I think when we were doing this demo yesterday, we were adding an object, removing an object, etc., etc. Tells you who did it, what actions were done, etc. But
we do have a question. Peter from YouTube says, can it search for scripts that are redundant, ignoring indirection? So we'll just assume generally it can't account for indirection. So can your thing try to find redundant scripts? Because largely
when you say redundant,
I'm
do you mean like
assuming that
scripts
they're not identical.
Print scripts for the same layout, because you keep forgetting that the print script existed previously.
The AI would have to look at that and evaluate whether the script did anything useful in addition to the print. It's a good request. If he's got it in there, it would make me nervous that the AI was that good, but that's a hell of a great idea. I mean, big picture, right?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to analyze the code of the script and see if you have scripts. I mean, all the steps in a script have a hash. If you were to roll up the hash of all the steps of a script, and if the hashes of the hash were the same, then you have scripts that are identical. Completely identical.
Like legitimately identical. Yes.
Yeah, legitimately identical. But you do have here, again, like if you go back to the dashboard and I'm looking at scripts, I have 285 scripts that are just useless.
Yeah, there's David. There's David. Here we go.
Yes.
David says, or if a script has like 90% similarity. That's what I wanted to ask, right? Because a hash is a precision strike. It's all or nothing. It's not like
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we can get there with AI maybe, but another thing that I didn't mention here, I can look at your system and just kind of glance like the number of white space, number of comments, and number of disabled code. Like I can see here, hey, you've got like, sorry, here I just jumped over there, but like I look at this, you have some of your scripts have some disabled code in it. Like these are small scripts anyway.
Sure.
But if you have large, like let me search for find scripts that have, let's see, number of steps greater than, let's say 100.
It might be a one or two.
So now,
well, there they are. Okay.
Okay, so now here's all the scripts that have like over 100 steps, and so this script here has none of them. Yeah, so very little of them have a lot of disabled code. This one has 6% code that's disabled, not in use, which you could remove. It tells you the number of comments, so I can tell like, hey, you have a pretty good use of commenting in your scripts, right? 30%
Yeah,
of
I have
it
to
is
beat my
comments.
engineers into submission, but yes. So
And then there's some white space. So between white space and comments, like if I were to look at this script, right, if I go to dive into it, I'd
mhm,
see like here's some white space, here's an
mhm,
actual comment, right? I'm reading the script, et cetera,
yep,
right? So
yep,
you're explaining things as you go, et cetera. So
yep. No, that's just good. This is a good tool. I like a lot of this. David Angel and some of you are asking, like, you're looking not so much for precision identicalness, but a script that's largely identical. And that's where AI, I think over the next number of years is going to get better. If Claris can keep building the hooks, the engineers at Claris can keep building the hooks into this XML2 and the deep linking and stuff like that. Vince's tool and the tools in the market that kind of take up this space could totally change the world of FileMaker, because I could see us where you wouldn't want to build a solution without having a Vince-like tool glued in, because you're going to be constantly interacting with it to make you could code probably twice as fast with a tool like this, at least. Especially not so much initial coding, but it's a support after 6 months or a year. You come left and you come back, you're like, oh my God, what did I do?
The amount of time
right.
me or
So
Richard have gone like, "Who's written this script? Is this your fault? Is this my fault?"
yeah.
What
So
happened?
so like like this is just the meetings file is just a test ground, but like
Mhm,
let's say I add the title field
mhm,
into this calculation and I go to the title and I say I want to delete it, right?
mm.
It's gonna tell me
Yes. So
like
that's a very
it,
minimum level of keeping out of trouble. We need that at a
right,
much more integrated
right.
throughout the whole interface. Throughout the whole
Yeah.
interface.
So this thing here tells me like, oh, you can't delete it. It's actually being used somewhere in some calculation. But you don't get that kind of warning if you go to value lists and these value lists are used. I can go here and just delete them willy-nilly. And even if they're used, I've just introduced problems. So going back to the metaphor of call before you dig, go look at inspector, see if you have any references, see where they are, unhook the references, and then go ahead and delete it, right? So you're refactoring your solution to have it more streamlined, and also like you look for those problems and go fix the problems, and now you have no problems and you've got a lightweight solution, and it works really well. And this kind of is a great tool to help you maintain that system, and stays out of the way and helps you be productive.
Mike has a question. What level of knowledge, i.e., what level of developer, or how experienced of a developer do you need to be to use a tool like Inspector Pro 8?
Well, I mean, I mean, you don't even, how do I say, if you're building solutions, um, the biggest competitor is not using anything, right? So
Yeah, I don't think he's thinking about it like
because
that. It's like, so I would say, let me try to answer this, then Vince, then you can jump in. If you have 2 or 3 years of experience and you're past the point of a beginner's just trying to make a relationship work and a layout to work. And you don't, and that person doesn't even care about performance as long as it worked. That's the beginner kind of thing. If you're past that point where you're building stuff and other people are using your stuff, you're probably at a point where a tool like this Inspector Pro 8 would be helpful for you. Does that
yeah,
make sense? Right? If you're
I
past
agree.
yeah.
Yeah, the other thing is if you build any modest size complexity, you can't keep track of all the things at some point. You just don't know, like, oh yeah, I use that layout in such and such a script, and it's also being referenced by a button on some other layout that takes me to that layout, etc. You just won't know because over time the complexity is so huge that if you don't have a tool to help you manage and organize that complexity, you're just so inefficient and can introduce all kinds of problems by or you just don't ever delete anything.
Well,
And
that's my
you
problem.
know,
I look at BVA right here, and I'm like, I want to get rid of that. And I know it wasn't named properly, and it was probably a test, some sort of test that someone Bill, me or Margaret Bill, but I don't remember building it and I want to delete it, but I don't have the confidence to delete it. So it kind of just, you never take out the trash from your kitchen. You just keep getting more trash and more trash and more trash. And it'd be nice to know if you could identify the trash for what it is and then take it outside, right?
Yep.
That would be great.
So just to recap, we have a discount for your viewers. It's a 15% discount code, FM Training 15, and you can download the Inspector Pro 8 version from our website. Mac only right now. We have Linux that we're kind of in the final throes of it working. That should come next, and then Windows shortly thereafter.
And I know
So-
this is going to happen, everyone. So when your people are asked this question, you just said Mac only and Linux is coming. That's the server. That's the server. So if you were a Windows user, you have Windows development, we're talking about you put this thing on the server, right? And that's where it's going to
Yep.
process.
Yep.
Hot Air Balloon Kin says, I'm a single developer and I run 2 servers, two clients, 2 servers. I guess he separates them. Can I put Inspector Pro on both servers with a single user license? Question mark.
Yeah, it's a user applicable license. So it's the number of users that you're paying for. You can put it in as many places as you like, as long as the number of users adheres to our license.
All right. And then another question is, he says, of course, the typical question, I always like these questions. What happens when the subscription runs out and I don't renew? Does it stop working? It should. It's a subscription license. It should not work anymore.
Yeah, so what'll happen is your data will still be there. You'll still be able to search it and et cetera, but you won't be able to do any more analyses. So you won't be able to run another analysis, et cetera. That part will stop working, but the data won't go away.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So you can't add and do new stuff, but the stuff you did previously is still there. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Other questions from anyone? This is pretty good. Great. Is there a timeline for getting this to run on Windows? Is what Hot Air Balloon Kin
Yeah.
asked the
So
question.
again, Linux. We're actually actively testing Linux. We have just a few things that are still we're trying to get sorted out, but it's working. It's just, some things are just not working exactly the way we need them to. So Linux is next. Once that's done, we also have Windows that comes right after that. So I'm hoping by the end of the summer we'll have all the platforms done. So
Cool.
Mac, Linux, and Windows. Yeah.
All right, so there is the discount you see right there. Discount code 15% off. FM Training 15 will get you 15% off, and it's an annual subscription that you pay for. Feel free to check out the website beeswax.net and then press the products button at the top. It's probably the easiest way to do that. Ken says Vince should point out what the trial options are. Is there a trial, Vince?
Yeah. So when you download it from the website, you'll get an activation license, and that activation license should be roughly 2 weeks, and it's fully working. You can do anything you want. You can generate, like if you have a OpenAI account, you can generate the summaries, script summaries, generate the embeddings, all of that stuff. Everything will work. After 2 weeks, the license will just not process anything anymore.
Right,
So,
same
but
as if you
it's
ran
fully
out.
working.
Perfect.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm just trying to
Um,
help you. I'm a hard person, but I'm like pushing you to be awesome, and the awesomeness is there. The awesomeness
I
is
mean,
there.
This has laid the foundation. We have all kinds of awesomeness coming, more awesomeness coming.
I
Stay
well,
tuned.
wait, well, we could always have you back again if you have new, fresh awesomeness, because people love to see awesomeness. So,
And you see on the screen, one last comment. This
Mm.
tool is a collaboration between, well, it was worked on by both myself and Brendan Pierce. And
Okay.
it wouldn't be as great as what you see today if it wasn't for Brendan. Brendan has been an awesome help to making this tool a reality, and I have him to thank greatly for it. So
well, yeah,
thanks
behind
again.
behind every great product is a multitude of people who are invisible who help
Yes.
and make it possible. So, yes.
Yeah. Thanks, Richard. Thanks,
Thanks,
Margaret.
guys. Thanks,
Thank you,
Margaret.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.